This is a continuation on the TelecomandoRC Differentials 101. So I'm going to be talking about four-wheel drive vehicles only and doing donuts. On two-wheel drive vehicles, you can do donuts no problem. It's not really an issue like it is on a four-wheel drive vehicle. Now, low power, I'm generally going to be talking about something that's 2S. High power, 4S to 6S. 3S, depends on the setup and the weight of the vehicle, really. I couldn't really decide whether to call it low power, high power. We can include it with the high power for the purpose of this, although I'm not going to have 3S on written in this video. But if both tires or both shafts, say the two output shafts here, are rotating at the same relative speed, for example here, the differential is not doing anything. It's just going along for the ride. So this whole thing is just spinning along. These two gears are spinning with these output shafts, and these other conical gears that help with the differential effect, they're not rotating about their axis. They're just spinning about this axis. So that is the difference. So there's no differential effect here. If you add a locker or if this were a straight axle, it would be the same thing. But we do have a differential. So this is a differential. So what we're going to end up having is the following. It's called a differential because it compensates for the differential in speeds. So let's just say this here is spinning. So this tire here is spinning at 15 kilometers per hour. And this one is spinning at 25 kilometers per hour. So let's pretend the black arrows are going, these are going toward the screen. So it's going, say, forward toward the screen. The red is going slower or toward us. From this point of view, since we're talking about 15 kilometers per hour, it's just going slower. But there's a reason why I changed the arrows. Now, if this one's spinning toward the screen, it's going to make this gear spin into the screen and left. And if this one's spinning this way out of the screen, right, so this point is coming out toward us and then back down into the screen, then it's going to push this gear out of the screen right. So it'll do this motion. And that's how a differential works. Now, there are some 3D, really cool 3D images or models you can look for that have a much better rendition than this, but this is a basic example. So what this differential does is it compensates for the difference in speed in the two tires without the axle binding. So it allows for these output shafts to travel or rotate at different speeds without them binding and something breaking. Now you can view it this way. So like I mentioned here, the left is going slower than the right. Well, from the perspective of the right, let's just say that tire, if you were in some point in that tire, as far as you were concerned, you weren't moving. So this is where we talk about the relationship between one. So relative to the right, if you're in the right, you're not moving. So relative to the right, the left is actually moving in reverse at 10 kilometers per hour. From the perspective of the left, these are not moving. So this gear is not moving, this gear is not moving. These two gears are just rotating about this gear. This one is moving. This is moving 10 kilometers per hour forward or into the screen. Now, I didn't put the X's here. I forgot, but it would be the same thing again. These two are not moving. These are just rotating about this gear, and this is going in reverse. So that has to do with relative. Imagine you're in a vehicle and you're looking out the window. Sometimes you look out the window and the vehicle beside you moves forward and you get the sensation as if you were moving in reverse. But in reality, you're stationary. That vehicle is moving forward. Or you're driving down the highway, you look out the window, and it looks as if a vehicle passed you going the opposite direction you're going, but in reality, that vehicle was parked, you're going forward. Or both of you are going opposite directions, and it just seems that in that point where you pass each other, it seems that both of you were just going incrementally fast. You were going maybe 50 kilometers per hour, the other individual 50 kilometers per hour the opposite direction, and it seems as if one of you passed the other at 100. That's the idea behind it. So that's a concept that you need to understand differentials and how they work. The same thing applies to the center differential. But now the output shafts are going into another differential, right? We have a front differential and a rear differential. That's the difference. But this one here compensates for the difference in the two. Why? Because as you accelerate, these may come off the ground, not have that much grip, so they may start unloading, whatever it is, or you may turn and there's going to be a differential in speed on all of them. But let's begin with just going in a straight line. When going in a straight line, when accelerating quickly, the front end is going to start to lift off, weight is going to transfer to the rear, so this is going to have most of the traction, this one will not. So these tires, as this goes forward, will want to unload because there is less traction. Now, usually on 110 scale vehicles, touring cars, there is no central differential, so we're not going to count this. Buggies, these will tend to use a center differential, many of them. For example, a Techno EB410 or EB410.2 or a Team Associated 74, for example, may have weights, oil weights, from anywhere from 7.5 thousand to 30,000 depending on your application. Short course trucks may have 10,000. Some of them out of the box have 10,000. Some of them may have 15,000, but you may want to go all the way to 50,000 depending on the traction conditions that you are operating in. Monster trucks, again 10 scale, you're probably going to go with 50,000 to 80,000. Some of them come factory in kits. So if you're building a kit with maybe 60,000, 80,000 oil. So you're probably going to have something like this. And this will operate between these ranges. Your differentials will operate great on 2S. You really do not need more. The problem is high power. If you start going into high power, these will unload so much that if you were to use such light oils, the oil inside will cook. Meaning it will heat up, lose its viscosity, and the differential effect, it will, what you want, you will lose. I'm not going to compare it with having water, but you're going to have something very liquid in there that's not going to function properly. The other problem too is heat may transfer through the shafts, and you may start warping some of the plastics in the cases. And that is a major issue. Say you warp the rear plastic here, now the bearing doesn't sit properly, which means your pinion doesn't fit properly, but it's still spinning, so you're going to chew up the gears back here. So that is an issue. So 2S, you would be fine within these ranges, but once you go into higher power, you would not. You would have to increase the weight of the oils. I'm not putting touring cars because there's no differential on 110, maybe 1.8, but 1.8 touring cars and 1.8 buggies, just let's put them under the short course category since they're similar size, similar dimensions as far as wheelbase is concerned and track width. So you will probably increase to 30,000. To be honest, 30,000 is very light for 4S. I think you're more than likely going to be, so 30 to 80, some people may go. You're probably going to be between 80,000 and 1 million. 1 million if you're doing a lot of speed runs, but when you start going something this heavy, the car is going to want to flip over. So if it's a short course truck, it's going to want to just flip over. The front end is just going to flip over the back because the power is going to be equal. So as this lifts, it's not going to unload as much because the differential is not going to be affected as much. So it's still going to send a similar amount of power to the rear. So as this wants to push forward and this wants to lift, it's just going to send the front end over. So you're going to have to modulate the throttle and not go full speed right away. It's not that difficult to do. You just need a longer straight, but high speeds, that's generally what you do. Anyway, and this will keep a more even power. Your oil will not cook as easily, especially when you have something this heavy. You could maybe even go with 2.5 million, which is super thick. I mean, this is thicker than some glues out there. And it doesn't lock it, but it makes it very difficult for this to turn. You could spin this wheel, have this one on the ground and this one, and well, anyway, you can spin this wheel and these will spin easily, even if there's some friction. So if there's light friction, you can spin one of these and one of these will spin. Just depends on the oil here in the differentials, which wheel will spin, or both. But that is something that you're probably going to be using, or anybody will be using, for high speeds, going straight. Now, something to consider is when taking turns, and we're getting closer to donuts now. When we take a turn, a wheel, the inner front wheel, is generally going to start lifting off. Or it depends on how you're taking a turn. So one of these is going to start lifting off. It depends on your droop, your suspension. Say you have plenty of droop here, not much droop here, your inner rear is probably going to start lifting versus this one. But sometimes you could start going so fast that both of the inner tires could start lifting, both of these. Well, that puts you in a bit of a pickle. And the reason why, if we look at this, let's just say you're turning, so we're turning that direction, and you start, and you're going slow, and you have really heavy oil, there's not going to be much of an effect here compared to what we've seen before, thus the small little arrows. This here, these actually belong over here. This is spinning, and this is spinning, but there is a insignificant differential in speed between the two. So the differential, to be honest, doesn't really care. If you run something really heavy like 1 million, it's not really going to care. It's going to create a small amount of effect, but it's fine. Why? This one here is going at about 24 kilometers per hour. That one's going same speed. This one 25, that one 22. We could even say 23 just to make it better. Doesn't matter. The point is, everything is rotating at about the same speed. The tires are probably compensating for the difference at this point. So differential is not going to be that stressed because you're going slow, or you're taking a slow turn, or it's a small turning radius. Now, this is what happens when you start doing donuts. When you do donuts, you're doing a really sharp circle. So perhaps this arrow here should look more like that. And you're trying to turn the vehicle really, really fast. So your tires are going to be going at very different speeds. As soon as you hit the throttle really fast to do that donut, let's say this one has the most traction. This one's going to get the least amount of power. Why? Because power is going to be transferred to the tire with the least resistance, which means that almost immediately this one's going to unload and start spinning incredibly fast, say 70 kilometers per hour, which something that is a short course or a monster truck on a 4S or a 6S system, this is very, very easy to achieve. It's not that difficult. So this one's going to unload. This one's going to come up, start getting a speed. So you're going to hit that, from 0, 10, 20, 40, 70. By the time this one hits 70, this one was already lifted off and started to unload, didn't quite catch up. This one here probably started to unload. Something that will happen is your vehicle will actually flip over after a donut. It'll tumble. So this one's starting to unload. So this is the other tire. But now I made up these numbers, but this is a realistic scenario. So the difference in speed from all four is incredibly different. The speed from here and here is going to be compensated by this differential. The difference in speed from here to here is going to be compensated by this one. So one, you're probably going to end up cooking this oil or that oil eventually. But if you look at the speed from here to here, or even here to here, this is a big difference. There's also a big difference between here and here and these two. So what's going to happen is this differential needs to work fast. The only way it can work fast is with light oil. But because these vehicles, short course truck, 10 scale is usually going to be about 3 kilos outfitted. A monster truck, 4, maybe more, right? Those are the general ranges. I mean, you can have even if your short course is only 2 kilos 50, well, say 2,500 grams, 2,500 grams, it's still pretty heavy. So this differential is going to have to work really fast to compensate for this. But light oil, we've already determined that it will be cooked because of the weight of the vehicle and the speed because it's high power. So we went with high weight oil. Now it cannot work very fast. And because it cannot work very fast, something has to take the stress, and it's going to be your differential that's going to take the stress still, and you're just going to destroy your differential gears. And this is a very common problem when people start overpowering their four-wheel drive vehicles and start bashing and start doing donuts. So donuts are a really bad idea for four-wheel drive vehicles that have a center differential. I mean, it's a bad idea for any vehicle. It's fun, I won't deny that, but four-wheel drive vehicles, it's a very bad idea. You will end up destroying the gears because something has to give, and the differential cannot keep up. It will be the gears inside. I've seen this happen. I've actually seen photos. You can look up photos. And then people wonder why. This is the reason why. So really, if you want to do donuts, consider a two-wheel drive. If you have a four-wheel drive and you want to do donuts, low power, you will probably be fine. High power, big mistake. So this is something to consider. But this concludes the Differentials 101. I hope this was helpful. Please go ahead and like, comment below if you've seen this happen or if this has happened to you, or maybe what oils you run on your setups. But thank you so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe if you have not. Until next time.
What? Oh, my hair! My tongue! My rod!